Okay, I'm going to go through some basic settings of the gamepad for Engine Driver. First I'm going to power up my gamepad, press and hold, yep, and then I'm going to start. I'll wait till it pairs. Okay, it's paired, we've got little dots on either side of the little Bluetooth symbol, and I'm going to start Engine Driver and connect to a server and select a loco. So when I control it, I've actually got some, very first thing I do the moment I touch a button on the gamepad, it's going to go through the test sequence. The full test sequence is all 8 major functions. Yep, so that's connected, it's recognized that everything's working correctly, drop me back out. I've got a little 1 symbol. If I had more than one gamepad I'd get a 2 symbol somewhere, but at the moment I've only got one gamepad connected. Now I've actually got some rather strange settings on my throttle, so that's jumping up by 4, but I've got a maximum of 10 on my throttle speed, so that's behaving a bit strangely, so I'm going to go in and change that. So just to have a look at that, just going into preferences, if I look at my speed units, I've got it set at 10, which is why that default of 4 is in there. The default of 4 works better for a 1% setting. Because I've got it set at 10, it's a bit strange, so I'm going to go and change that. The setting for the change amount is different between a gamepad, the volume keys, and the default of the buttons on screen. So this first one that you see, speed button change amount, which is set to 1, is really only for the buttons on screen. So to change the one that's for the gamepad, I have to go back up to the gamepad settings, and I need the speed button change amount in there. So I'll change that back to 1. And that now should be a bit more reasonable. Yep. Okay, one of the other new settings that hasn't made to the release version yet, but hopefully will make the next version, we can change a few things. We can actually, oops, I went in the wrong place. I can go into the voice response preferences. So this was primarily set up so that if you put the phone in your pocket and you're using your gamepad, you can actually turn on certain voice responses and hear what's going on. So I'm going to turn that on. So key events only, the intention is to add other capabilities later. And by default it will do it on a gamepad throttle change. And it can also tell me the speed and the loco, and it will also tell me in gamepad test mode. So I'll leave those default settings for the moment, and I'm going to go and reset the gamepad. So if I have a look at that now under the menus, I've got a gamepad test menu, and in that one of my options down here is a reset, and a reset will make gamepad reset. There you go. It will make the Engine Driver app forget that I've got a gamepad attached. So it still is attached via Bluetooth, it just Engine Driver doesn't know about it anymore. So the moment I touch a key, it knows I've got to go through the gamepad test sequence. And I've got various options in there. I can reset or cancel, as I just did before, or skip. And I can go through the full sequence, or I can actually skip it by pressing down 3 times. Test skipped. So it skipped it, but it's accepted it. So it's assuming that it's working, but it hasn't gone through the sequence. So as I go into it, that's all working correctly. I'll fire up another loco on the other throttle, and if I use the switch, throttle 2, so it's told me which. Throttle 1. So if it's in my pocket, I've got a bit of a response, I know what's happened. If I go back into the preferences, into those voice response preferences, I'm going to turn on speed and loco. This is a bit of a mouthful, and I wouldn't recommend using it both, but it may still be useful if you need it. So now when I change locos, throttle 2, loco 2528, speed 0. Throttle 1, loco 2511, speed 0. Okay. What I suspect might be more useful in most cases will in fact just be the speed. So if I turn that off, oops, wrong one, just leave on speed, fire up, switch over,
Throttle 2, speed 0. Throttle 1, speed 6.
Okay. So as I said, that hasn't made it to the released version yet, but should be there shortly. The other thing we can do with the gamepad is there's a click that every time you touch a button you can change that so that you can increase the volume of it. You can also change every one of the buttons. So if I wanted to change the iOS button, which is by default set to swap locos, I can set that to be pretty much anything I want it to be, including all of the function keys, all 28 of them. There's also an option in there for all stop. So if you've got multiple locomotives under control, they'll all stop. So it's not an emergency stop, will just stop all of the locomotives under control. We might leave it there. Oh, okay. There's also an option to do a simple test. As I said before too, you can turn off the gamepad testing entirely, but there's a simple test option in there which will simply do a single down speed or reduced speed. Whatever button you set to be reduced speed, as long as it can accept that, it will accept the test as being passed.